Okay, Stephen, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. Last afternoon of the conference, I really appreciate your making the effort. This is not going to be the kind of presentation where I tell you a lot of stuff that I've spent a long time researching, I'm afraid. If you wanted that kind of presentation, maybe you should wait a few years while I do the research. This is going to be the kind of presentation where we share experiences. I've prepared some slides based on my experiences, but I hope that you'll be able to chime in at certain points in the presentation, if possible using your microphone. But if you're really on the run from the FBI or something like that and don't want your voice on the recording, then Forrest has said he will read out for us anything that you put into the chat. But my intention here is that we should share our experiences, and my experience is no more privileged than yours, except that I had a chance to make some slides about it. I think you see my name, my affiliation, and my title on the first slide. I'm looking at the reasons why people support, engage in, and so on, study abroad programs. And the reason that I'm interested in this is because I think there's a mismatch between the motivations of the different stakeholders involved in setting up and operating and maintaining a study abroad program. And this mismatch to me has become more apparent because of the unusual times we live in. The impossibility of traveling to another country, the push for online study abroad, whatever that means, both show that some stakeholders have a rather different idea of why we do study abroad than others. Now, I've already used the jargon of stakeholders a couple of times. It seems to me that that study abroad is not just about somebody packing a suitcase and leaving for another country. It actually involves quite a lot of other people in the process of making that journey to another country and the stay there possible. So this is the first time I would like to throw the question to members of the audience. Just tell me, please, and rather quickly, because we only have 25 minutes, tell me who, in your experience, are the stakeholders in the study abroad programs that are run by universities and colleges in this country?
Students, parents.
Students and parents. Okay, thank you. More? I do encourage you to share your experiences, please.
Host countries, host universities.
Host universities, host countries, yes.
The university itself in terms of their advertising.
Exactly,
their investment.
yes. The university, the sending university or the home university, yes. As you see, I prepared 6 circles. I actually have 7, so far we have 4. Do keep going, please.
Travel agencies.
Travel agencies, they have a great interest in maintaining these programs. More, please? Okay, it's that Sunday afternoon feeling again.
No,
when I tried to brainstorm this myself based on my own experience, these were the 6 that I came up with. You've already suggested a couple more, which we will note as we go along. But obviously the student herself, and it usually is a her, students' parents you mentioned, the teachers. We didn't so far mention our role in this, in the setting up and maintenance of these programs. The partner school you mentioned, the school itself, and the ministry that sets up the educational framework within which study abroad programs occur. And when I got to the ministry, I realized there was another stakeholder I wanted to mention to you, which would be industry. I think in Japan specifically, industry, generally defined, has a stake in study abroad programs. And we can see this quite clearly in the existence of programs like the Tobitate Japan, where there's a lot of industry money available for study abroad or international programs under the right conditions. So those were the 7 stakeholders that came to my mind. You've already suggested to me that the host country and the travel agents also have a role to play. We'll not forget those as we go along. But now I would like to proceed by looking at each of the stakeholders and asking first what the messaging from those stakeholders is in your experience, and then what might lie behind that messaging, because the messaging is not always aligned with the motivation that this stakeholder has in supporting study abroad. So we're starting with the ministry. That, believe it or not, is the official logo of MEXT, our education ministry here in Japan. What messages do we get from the ministry? This again is where I would like to invite you to open your microphones and contribute, please.
Global-minded people, human resources.
Internationalization is the word, right, on paper.
Internationalization was the word about 15 years ago, but the first speaker was quite right that this is all we get at the moment. Every document coming related to study abroad, they've dropped the Kokusaika, they've dropped the internationalization. They are talking about global jinzai, which is a little difficult to translate. It usually comes out as global human resources. I think we all get that message loud and clear through our international centers and so on. As for what they mean by it, over the years, I've attended several seminars at this conference and others where people try to dissect the documents coming from the ministry to decide what they mean by it. They say themselves that global jinzai means human resources who can positively meet the challenges and succeed in the global field, which I suppose is more or less intelligible, but they set this in the context of talented children who will be the leaders of the next generation. The further you look into this, the more opaque the prose begins. I'm certainly not going to inflict a reading of all these words to you, but they talk about a broad worldview, communicative and cooperative abilities, going beyond values, cultures, and different languages, so including but going beyond those, and the ability to create new values. And in keeping with the long history of education ministry guidance in Japan, the desire to contribute to society. You notice that for the ministry, this is not about personal development. This is not about going overseas to find yourself. This is about being able to contribute to society. That statement actually comes from a joint business academia committee for the promotion of global jinzai, of global human resources. So begin to see here the industry standing behind the ministry and very much approving, I think, of the way that global jinzai has been defined. So if we move on to industry, clearly they have a stake in global jinzai as promoted by the ministry. Do you have a sense of why the prospective employers of your students, when they graduate, have an interest in employing people who have studied abroad? Do you have a sense of that? If you do, please open your microphone and share it.
They want to send their employees abroad.
So they would like employees who are ready to be sent abroad, who don't need a lot of training in language and other things. Okay, anything else coming from that? Any sense? Well, here's what the chairman of Keidan then says, the chairman of the main employers organization. They say they want global-minded human resources, which is exactly an echo of what the ministry was saying. Reading a little further into the document, they want students who will be leaders in global business. Okay, yeah, they want people not only ready to be dispatched abroad at a rather junior level, but people who can take their business out into the world and be leaders there, which, as I say, I'm not just looking at the messaging, but also what lies behind it. And it seems that this is an amalgam of language and business culture, and in some sense, business skill or leadership skills as well. Moving on to the school, I'd be very interested to know what kind of messaging your schools are doing or were doing before the pandemic about study abroad. Please share with us.
Enhancing your job prospects.
Okay, so it's about employability for your school. Thank you. Other impressions, please? Well, I'm rather fortunate to work at a university which prides itself on its study abroad programs and promotes them very actively through the process of recruiting high school students into our university. And the message from those publications that I've seen over the years is, come and study with us and you can study abroad. We will facilitate it. We will even subsidize the cost of your overseas study. This is what our publicity says, and it's one of the main sales points of the university. And working inside the university, I know that what lies behind that message are two things. One is recruiting students to come to our university. We see this as a sales point. We see this as a way of boosting our number of applicants and therefore the quality of the students we accept. It distinguishes us in the local market from some of our partner schools who may have study abroad programs but don't treat them as a major sales point. But it's also, behind the scenes, a way of qualifying for ministry grants. Back to the other stakeholder, the ministry, they offer grants based on how many programs we have, how many sister schools, how many students we send overseas, and so on. And my school, I know, and I think other schools in similar situations, depend on being able to attract grants from the ministry. The revenue from students certainly isn't enough in itself. So these are the two things that I see behind the message that my school puts out. Maybe your school has similar messages, or maybe it has different messages. Our partner schools, the schools who will, when times are good and global travel is possible again, who will receive our students. Do you have any sense of what they stand to gain as stakeholders in the process?
In the case of Australia, universities, I don't think it's true anymore, but the only money they could accrue for their budget came from international students, other than what was given by the government.
I heard one word there, Curtis. I heard the word money. So yeah, seeing our students as a source of money for themselves. Any other impressions coming from partner schools? Well, here's what I hear. I hear we're happy to welcome paying students from all over the world. And I unpack that as saying, we are a business. And certainly in most of the Anglophone universities that I've dealt with, they are running their incoming international students as a business. They intend to make money out of this. And your students are a source of revenue for us. Now, you may find this language rather harsh, but we should be aware that many of our English teaching colleagues in partner schools have found themselves without a job simply because we're not able to send them students at the moment. A lot of them are struggling to provide lessons online and some kind of study abroad online experience. But in general, the alternative to having our students provide revenue to their university has been unemployment for the teachers. So there is a very caring and soft edge to this rather harsh business language that we're using. Those are the partner schools. The teacher, that's you, that's me. Why, if you do you encourage students to study abroad? This is a question I hope that several people will be able to answer to share their ideas.
Come on, you guys, you know.
Surely somebody's encouraging their students to study abroad.
Sure. I'm Jean over here. Yeah, to motivate them to enjoy English
motivate them
more.
to do what, Jean?
To enjoy English more, definitely. Kids come back from the trips and they love English. The students who went before they went who said, I don't like English, the numbers just shoot up, you know.
And they motivate the others.
Great experience.
So we're talking about actually the benefit for the teacher, which is having more motivated students.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not, I wasn't reading your slide carefully enough.
No, that's fine. I think that's one of the reasons we encourage students. What do we actually say to students when we encourage them to go? I'm sure we don't say, well, my class will work better if you're more motivated. What do we actually say to them?
Well, I'm in a slightly different situation because in my situation, everybody has to go. But yes, so I'll just let somebody else answer that.
So maybe the question for you is when a student comes and says, why do we have to go? How do you answer the question?
Well, in my case, so I don't mean to sidetrack you, it's a high school situation, and we send 240 kids to California for 2 weeks. So
Wow.
they have to go. It's a school trip,
Right.
but they love it. It's very positive.
Okay. So not only motivation to study English then, but a positive atmosphere among the cohort who go as well. Can other people share their messaging about study abroad, please?
I just tell my students, this will be an experience. It'll be unlike any other education you've ever had. It'll expand your mind, give you more cognitive flexibility, and you'll become more like me.
More like you. Well, until you said that, Curtis, that was pretty much what I say to my students. I tell them, as you do, that it will be a great educational experience. I'm not convinced my students want to be like me or like you. But what I mean when I say that, when I think about what I'm trying to say here, I'm saying, yeah, you're going to learn some English. If you go for long enough, you're going to learn some English. You're going to broaden your horizons. And so there's a lot packed into that expression. But when I'm talking to students, that's the kind of thing I would want them to understand. And also, it's a chance to grow up. It's a chance to develop as a human being in ways that you may not have an opportunity to if you stay here in Japan. I'd like to pause the slides for a moment there and take on board the other two sets of stakeholders that you suggested to me at the beginning. One of them was the host country, the country that receives our students. So not so much the university, but what's in it for Australia? What's in it for the US and so on? Any ideas there?
Like the soft power of having a lifelong fan of that country, promoting the country back at home.
Those words, soft power, often get used in this context, don't they? Yes. Any other things that you've heard from the hosting country?
Increasing tourism. When the students come back or go back and talk about their wonderful experiences, supporting their tourist industry.
So again, we're talking about revenue as we did with the sister schools. Tourism is a business, and yes, it increases the amount of foreign money spent in the country. Tourism and soft power, anything else there? Okay, the other group of stakeholders you mentioned to me was travel agents. I'm thinking of the travel agents who take care of all the travel needs of our students. What's their motivation in being involved in study abroad?
Oh, it's a huge source of revenue for them. I did some studies on how much travel agencies were getting out of the total program fee. It was about 50%.
Yes, anybody who's tried to negotiate with a travel agent will back up that finding, I think. Oh, it's too expensive for our students. Well, what if we came down by 20%? Oh, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, there's a huge margin on top of the prices that they charge. This is absolutely about revenue. And why not? Travel agency is a business. They exist to make money for the shareholders of their company. So why not? But let's be clear about it. Their motivation is not humanitarian. It's not educational. It is about profit. I'd like to go back to my slides because there's a couple of other stakeholders who we haven't covered yet. The parents. Now, in my experience, there are two kinds of parents. There are unsupportive parents, and in that case, the student usually doesn't end up studying abroad. And there are supportive parents. So I'm not really asking about the messaging that people get from unsupportive parents. What about the supportive ones? What kind of things are they saying to students you know who are contemplating a study abroad experience?
Some of them are saying they did it themselves and it changed their life, so they want that experience for their children.
Yes, I love it when it's very often mothers who come and say that. I had this experience, I want my daughter to have it, and the daughter standing next was saying, maybe. But also, I think the opposite of what you've said is true as well. I didn't have this experience, so I want you to have it. I've had a lot of mothers say, I missed my chance to study, for example, in New Zealand. I would like my child to have it. So yeah, it's about, in a way, fulfilling the dreams and aspirations of the parents for their children. Anything else you hear from parents?
They hope their children get a better job prospect.
Again, it's about employability, just as it was when we talked about the messaging and the motivation from the school, about enhanced employability, yes. Anything else? here's what my reflection brought to me. A lot of messaging around safety coming from parents. And when I begin to unpack it, we hope you'll learn a lot and be safe. They seem to be equal parts to it. So what I'm hearing is, don't get into danger. Don't change. This is a natural reaction of a parent. If you're going to be away for 6 months, away for a year, then please be the same person when you come back, because we still want you to be our child. And learn English. And learn English connects directly to what you were saying about employability, I think. Those were the parents. What about the student herself? What do students say to you about studying abroad? I'm not
But
hearing
there are a
anything.
lot of fears and issues about going abroad.
Yes, certainly they are. Some of them inherited from their family, some of them fueled by the mass media. Certainly there are fears. What are some of the positive reasons students give you for why they would like to study abroad?
Almost every student I know that likes English, their primary purpose is to make friends with people from other countries. And this gives them the real chance to do that, to live with a foreign family, to make friends, to talk to other students. And so one of the problems is they don't really like to study with each other the whole time.
Yes, and this is a marketing problem for the whole schools. They're constantly trying to convince us that there are students other than Japanese students in their classes. Yes, to make friends. I want to have a lot of foreign friends. Any other things that you hear?
Can I add to that?
I'm sorry?
Oh, can I add to that though? About making friends?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, a lot of students actually say that, like when they apply for our program. This is in Fukui.
Hmm.
And yet when I ask them, so are you in touch with the friends that you made? And the answer is no.
Hmm.
So, on one hand, they say that they want to make friends or they want to learn more about the culture of the country, let's say America or Australia. And on site, they have a tendency to go, yeah, wow, great. But then anytime they come, well, after they come back, and maybe it's because ours is very short, but when they come back, there's not a whole lot of like continuous studying or love for English or wanting to go to the next step. It's more like I did
in
it.
terms of friends,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. I think there are two problems. I find my students are not particularly good at making friends anyway, even
Yeah.
surrounded by people with similar backgrounds to their own. And also I find that their desire for friends is a little unrealistic. If they go to Australia, they'd really like to meet Australian friends, but my students
Yes.
are not going to go into mainstream classes. They're going to be in English classes with Chinese people, with Filipinos, with people from Europe, maybe South America, but they're not going to meet many Australians except the teacher. And this is kind of fueled by the fact that we have international students at my university who are very proficient in Japanese and therefore take mainstream classes and do on occasion make friends in the class. So my students imagine themselves doing that in their host country. I was hoping to play you a video, the sound file at this point from a student who typifies everything that I have heard students say when I interview them to join the school, when I ask them why they've joined the advanced class in order to study abroad and things like that. And yes, as Curtis and Lorraine said, they want to make friends. They want to make memories. They don't usually say anything about my students don't say very much about, I want to learn English or I want to learn Korean, depending on where they're going. They want to make friends, they want to make memories. And what was special about the recording that I don't seem to be able to play you is that the student was also saying, I want to change. I have some bad habits here in Japan. I want to get out of them. So the idea of being in another place in order to be or become a different person. Oh, there was the sound file, never mind. So to change myself, to make a lot of foreign friends, maybe study English and make happy memories. You put them all together, the messaging and the motivation from all the stakeholders, and you have a bit of a mess. These things I won't say they don't fit together, but it's a miracle that they fit together, or it's a miracle that they used to fit together before the pandemic. But when my president came to me and said, can you organize online study abroad? I really couldn't imagine what she went. I can organize online English lessons, yeah. But online study abroad is a big challenge because it means so many different things. And clearly, to my president, it meant something that could be achieved online, mainly since she represents the school. It represented a continued way to attract students to the school and therefore revenue, and an ongoing way to prove to the ministry that we're doing our best for study abroad. So please don't stop those lovely, lovely subsidies that are keeping the school afloat. It's the pandemic that's brought this home to me, but I think it was there all along that different stakeholders have different motivations for being involved. And really putting the pieces together to have viable study abroad programs is not an easy task. It's a task that many schools, including my own, have achieved in the past. I don't know whether we'll be able to achieve it again in the future because the messages are so mixed. It is very precarious. And when I started to look for stakeholder models online, what I found was that there were some stakeholders, usually in a business setting, whose cooperation and involvement was voluntary. But with study abroad, if one of these working parts stops working, there's no study abroad program. If the students stop wanting to go, it won't happen. If the ministry stops offering subsidy, it won't happen. If industry stops giving money for students to study abroad, it won't happen. If parents are no longer supportive, any of these pieces that doesn't work means that we don't have study abroad. And that my intention today was to bring to your attention, to your awareness, the fact that there are mixed messages on study abroad, that everybody's involvement is needed for it to work, but that not everybody comes to the table for the same reasons. I thank you for your participation and for sharing of ideas that hadn't occurred to me. I hope in the end it all makes sense in terms of stakeholders think differently, but we need them all. Thank you very much.
Stephen,
Yes.
hey, Steve Hindenberry had a question.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and it's 2:57, but I think maybe we have a minute or two left. So, Steve Hindenberry.
Yeah, thanks, Forrest. I didn't really have a question. Just back when you were asking about students and what we tell students. And at my university, we see a lot of reticence of students pertaining to going to study abroad, because I hear a lot of my English isn't good enough, and we have that concern a lot. So a lot of students think that they go to study abroad because their English is good enough. And what I tell them is that going to study abroad is like getting your black belt in kendo or karate or judo. It's the real test, because a lot of people look at a black belt in a martial art as the goal, but actually a black belt is where the real learning begins, because that's when you've developed you know the basics, or at least you understand your own level of comprehension. So in the same way, when students go to study abroad, they go there and they come back like, okay, now I really understand the state of my English comprehension and my English ability. And that's why they come back, hopefully more motivated.
I'm glad you raised that, specifically because my experience is completely different. We obviously work in different institutions. One of my daily problems is students who think they can go study abroad in the mainstream classes, in the gakubu, who can barely string together a sentence to tell me that they want to study abroad. So I know that different institutions have different issues over this, and that's why I wanted to have a multiplicity of voices in this presentation, because to take two examples, I have one student who is absolutely determined that she'll study abroad for a year and then go and work abroad, but she cannot put together that sentence in English. And I have another student whose hopes of studying in Seattle were dashed by the pandemic, but has now become involved in activities that will get her to study abroad in Canada after she graduates from the university. She's going to put her career on hold. And I said, great, now you should really sign up for the TOEIC class as well, because that will help you get your English up to par before you go abroad. She said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going abroad to study English. So it's the opposite of your experience, but it's still problematic.
Yes, it seems like we're teaching different worlds, but yeah.
Yes, it often seems that way when you talk to colleagues, doesn't it, from other universities?
Okay, everybody, it's almost 3 o'clock. Stephen, Ryan, thank you very much for your talk. If you guys like to continue this, you can you can head off to the main lobby and continue the discussion in one of the rooms there if you'd like.
I think there's a study abroad SIG room off the main lobby, isn't there?
Yes, I think so. So you can head there. Okay, well, thank you very much. I guess on the next schedule is panel discussions, but before we leave, if you can unmute your mic and give Stephen a round of applause.
Well, thank you
very much.
So much, Stephen.
All right, and thank you very much, everyone. Yep. Okay. I guess I'll be closing off the room.
I see there was a lot going on in the chat that I've not had a chance to look at.
Oh, would you? I can download it if you want. I guess you could. Can you download it?
I don't know how. If you can talk me through
Okay.
it, or give me a couple of seconds and I'll read the whole thing.
Let's see. I
Actually-
can save chat and send it to you, actually.
Okay, that would help. Thank you.
Let me
Yeah,
see
there
if I
was a
can-
lot going on. It was pretty good.
Good. I was hoping for a little more vocal involvement, but I think people have got quite used to participating by chat.
Yeah. Okay, well, I've pressed the save chat, and I've also copied and pasted it just in case.
That's
So,
very helpful. Thank you.
yeah, and your email address, I can at least send this to, because I'm not exactly sure where the chat goes. I think it goes on the cloud.
Okay.
If I can get your email, if you can type your email
I'm putting
address
that
to
in the
me.
chat. Yeah.
Okay. Ooh.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, okay. Let me. Oh, okay. All right. I'll send you a Word file or a Pages file, which is better?
Word is better. I can open
Word
that
is
up.
better?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. All right, thanks.
Thank
Curtis?
you very much for your hosting.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Curtis,
thank you, Curtis, for your support. I'm glad you were here.
Where are you going to be next? You going to the dancing room?
I'll better go to the,
Sorry, go to the study.
study abroad SIG room just to see if there's anybody there.
Okay, I will too.
Okay.
all right,
See you
see you
guys.
guys.